4. Lies by omission.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It should have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. That's David Rockefeller from Memoirs. Perfect example of lying by omission is regarding World War II. The German Holocaust of 6 million Jews was always in the papers and always has been. It was on the front page of the Globe and Mail in Canada less than a month ago. The Russian Holocaust of 60 million Christians was rarely discussed, and most people are unaware of this Holocaust. Actually, a lot of them were tortured one at a time and for weeks at a time, and 60 million versus 6 million. You must understand, the leading Bolsheviks who took over Russia were not Russians. They hated Russians. They hated Christians. Driven by ethnic hatred, they tortured and slaughtered millions of Russians without a shred of human resource. It cannot be overstated. Bolshevism committed the greatest human slaughter of all time. The fact that most of the world is ignorant and uncaring of this enormous crime is proof that the global media is in the hands of its perpetrators. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. In this way, a reality was created that left people completely unconscious of Bolshevism. The enemy became Hitler's National Socialism rather than the bankers' International Socialism, the Bolsheviks. The German Holocaust was a vehicle from which children were educated against war and taught to be fearful of it. The Bolsheviks would lead us to a world government to end all wars. It is worthy of remark that a belief constantly inculcated during the early years of life, whilst the brain is impressible, appears to acquire almost the nature of an instinct, and the very essence of an instinct is that it is followed independently of reason. Charles Darwin, The Descent of Man. For one to realize the effect that propaganda has had on them, I think a fundamental change in belief has to occur. It can be the discovery that private interests control our money supply, which is easy to verify. It can be the realization that these wars are not being fought to protect us from threats and that these threats have been manufactured. The value of the following quote given by Donald Rumsfeld cannot be understated or underestimated, and this idea has left the consciousness of many. Vanity is the new God, and vanity makes people stupid and forget their own weaknesses. It makes them ripe for propaganda. There are things we know, things we don't know, and things we don't know that we don't know. Can be appreciated by anyone who has looked further into a belief that they held as a fact and later found to be not true. Once this happens, one comes to terms with the effect of propaganda has had on them. Many people believe themselves to be too intelligent to be fooled by propaganda. This makes them ideal victims, according to Jacques Ellul. He's a famous French sociologist, wrote a book called Propaganda. A good exercise to learn about propaganda is to watch one of the movies that challenge a reality that you accept, such as the reality of the moon landings. Everybody thinks we put a man on the moon. The movie, called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, is one that I thought was good, but there are others, giving more evidence. They do make it obvious that the moon landing, as told by the networks and the press, didn't happen. This is how powerful propaganda really is. But most people are not psychologically prepared to watch a movie like this. We tend to believe the things that happen within our own experience and that make sense according to our existing perception of the world. We have unconscious prejudices that have been implanted just with repetition. We forget that there are things that we do not even know that we don't even know. And this idea doesn't enter our consciousness. New ideas must always fit in with an already created narrative. Resistance to other conflicting ideas is called cognitive dissonance. If one refuses to look at both sides of an issue or look at it from an opponent's point of view, then mind control is preventing logical thought. Political correctness is a form of mind control. The value and importance of free speech is very well explained by John Stuart Mills in a book called Liberty. He argues against any form of political speech restriction in the pursuance of liberty and freedom. Now, free speech and freedom of expression it means that in the political domain. It doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want in public. It means that you can express political ideas freely of persecution. The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, posterity, as well as the existing generation, those who dissent from the opinion, still more those who hold it. If the opinion is right, they are deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. If wrong, they lose what is almost as great as a benefit, the clearer perception and livelier impression of truth produced by the collision with error. John Stuart Mills' book is called On Liberty. We are ruled by propaganda. Knowledge of just how powerful propaganda is the first step in awakening. It's not an easy step for anyone. It's impossible for the vain.